Welcome to Off the Post. I'm Russ Cohn. We've got Anthony Mangione. And how are you?
Doing okay, Russell. How are you today?
Pretty good. I got a new setup here, new computer. I had to get everything ready before the show today, but it's all good.
And we have Geek Squad. You didn't Geek Squad it. You get it. You're all by yourself.
No, I do it myself. So here's a buying tip. I use iMacs, right? But I always get them 3-4 years older because I'm not spending $2,500 on a brand new one. And so I got a 2020, and this thing's loaded with RAM. And so yeah, you get it for like $500-$600, and they'll last you like 2-3 years, and then you upgrade. And so that's how I do it. So I don't need Geek Squad, but I have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
So Russ will be buying my brand new iMac in about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
I'm fine. It's 70 degrees and sunny. Everything is beautiful in Buffalo.
It's playoff. It is playoff weather.
Yeah, for the Rochester Americans.
Right.
It's nice. And we have Stefan Rosner from the Hockey News, and sometimes outspoken outfielder for my softball team. Stefan, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Sunny and 58 here. So
you got the short end. You'll get it tomorrow then. That means tomorrow it'll be nicer by you.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's usually the way it works. All right. So let's talk about, I just noticed, and maybe this was a day or so old, but Semyon Varlamov is out for the year. So I'm going to pretend, even though I don't think the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, but they've played some better hockey lately. With him out, what does that do to Sorokin? How many games is he going to play now for them to try and make the playoffs?
All of them. I mean, you look at it, and as with Varlamov out, they need a steady backup. They brought in Hogberg back in May. He's proven to be a capable backup goaltender. However, he got hurt. And so for a couple of weeks, probably 4 to 5 weeks, they had the Four Nations break in there. They had Jakob Skarek up, got one game against Florida. Wasn't his fault they lost, but didn't win them the game. But he just clearly wasn't a trusted option for Patrick Waugh. So they went to Ilya Sorokin. I think he starts 12 or 13, something like that. They finally have Hogberg back. Hogberg's played a little bit, but they need to win hockey games, right, guys? And so it's going to be the Ilya Sorokin show. And if they get to the playoffs, I mean, last year they rode Varlamov because he was just the better goalie, and they rode him in the playoffs as well. They don't have that, so it's got to be Sorokin. You're paying him to be the guy. He's got to be the guy. They do have a couple of back-to-backs left. They have one next weekend against Carolina and Tampa. So that'll be the deciding factor where you think if the Islanders are still in it, how much they value Sorokin and how much they trust Hogberg. Because if Hogberg does get one of those games and a quote-unquote must-win, then they could rely on him a little more, and they trust. And I think he's earned the trust, but at the same time, the way Sorokin's played these last 7 or so games, he's got to be the guy. And if he can handle it, which it seems like he can, they'll be in good shape. And it sucks for Varley because injuries, you don't want to see someone's career end with injuries. Now, we don't know how long he'll be out, if he's out the entire next year, if his career is done. It sucks because he's been such a good Islander. But yeah, with Sorokin there, he's been good enough right now where you could run him out there every night. But if he does need a break and he's not feeling 100%, I think you have the trust that Hogberg can at least not lose you a game. He has won them games, but I don't think we're at a point now where Hogberg goes in and you're thinking, they got to overcome bad goaltending. He's been good enough to win them games. So trust Sorokin, but if you have to, you go to Hogberg.
Okay, this is tradition, Stefan, and people in the chat are asking me to put up the sign here, so I will. And usually that's about the Islanders because I've been long a critic of the Islanders and their structure, and I look at the goals standings in the league, and they are 28th in the league with 183 goals for now. The absence, the injury to Barzal obviously is a factor because he's one of their more talented scorers. But this has long been my issue with the Islanders. I think Sorokin's a top 5 goalie in this league. They're not playing as good defensively as they did maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I think they're still competent. They just don't score enough goals. And I whether this is Lou next year or somebody who succeeds Lou, I'm just wondering, will somebody finally address the fact that they just don't score enough goals?
I want to say you didn't include their power play goals in those numbers, but there's only like 6 power play goals to include in there, so don't worry about it. Power play is the reason why they are where they are now. But yeah, it's been a problem. Not only that, you're without Barzal. You had Dobson out for a little bit, and he was your 70-point defenseman last year. Hasn't been the same this year. But you also traded Brock Nelson, your best finisher, and you got back prospect. He's going to be a really good prospect for this team. Probably be a 3C. Next year, borderline 2C. They don't want to rush him. But, yeah, they have a problem scoring goals. And the crazy part is they generate chances every game, especially off the rush. They just don't finish. And that goes to the power play as well. But they just struggle to score goals. The good news is when you have Ilya Sorokin playing the way he's playing, you don't need to score 5, 6, 7 goals to win. Now they had to come back from down 2-0 in back-to-back games. They get enough goals to get the job done, but yes, when they made it to the bubble in the Eastern Conference Finals in back-to-back years, the one thing that killed them was their inability to score goals. They lost really close games. So it is a concern. You look at the summer and you kind of feel like this is the summer where Lou has to go out and win a free agency battle. Everything he's done has been through trades in season. Everyone's cap space is going up because of the cap rising. So there's even more teams going to be fighting for free agents, but you got to go and get an elite goal scorer. This is what this team's been missing. Barry Trotz called for it, never got it. Didn't help his case. Under Lambert, they tried to bring a more offensive game. Couldn't get the goals, and they actually sacrificed defense, so that didn't work. And now under Patrick Waugh, his system is really, really good for a team that knows how to score goals because the chances are there. They just don't bury. So I think that's one of the biggest concerns in the summer is go get an offensive producer because that will only help your 5-on-5 game and allow you to balance your top 6. But this power play, I mean, has been so abysmal this year, historically bad. Yeah, against the elite teams, you have to have your power play be a positive, and they've allowed short-handed goals as well. So yeah, this summer, that has to be the number one priority, but you could say that should have been the number one priority the last couple of years. Anthony Duclair is not an elite finisher. He's a good complimentary piece in a top middle 6. He's been hurt this year as well, but they need to go out and get a bona fide guy.
Well, Anthony just dropped off, so I'll follow up with this. If I recall, they were in the mix for Patrick Laine when Laine was being shopped. And if they weren't, they should have been because he's a power play force. You put him on the top of the face-off circle, you get him the puck, and he hammers it. I mean, were they in on Laine? And if they weren't in on Laine, why weren't they?
Yeah, I think they were in on Laine. I think there's always concern with the player. I'm not blaming the player at all in terms of off-ice stuff. But I think, you know, any team that was acquiring was taking a risk. That's just the reality of the situation now. Not
he
sure
is the
exactly.
Best power play scorer in the league, Stephen.
Yeah.
He would have cured a problem.
Oh, 1,000%. I don't know what the ask was. I know the ask seemed pretty high, and the cap space was another big issue.
Right.
I know there was no retainment on the deal with Montreal. They retained. I don't think there was, right?
I don't think there was any retention.
Right.
No.
So that's got to be the biggest thing for me as why Montreal was able to do that. The Islanders didn't have any real cap space, so they would have had to have them retain. Columbus clearly didn't want to do that. So I think that's probably the biggest reason why he didn't land on the island. But there were other trades probably to be made as well for goal scorers. And the Islanders, just whether it was cap space, whether it was unwillingness to part ways with. I mean, we heard, you know, it sounds like Noah Dobson's name was out there in terms for an elite scorer. I believe it was Elias Pettersson. And like, you're going to have to get a guy like that. The Islanders don't have the picks. They don't have the prospects. So you have to give up NHL talent that you already have that's young and under control. And for the Islanders, does it make sense to trade a Dobson for a guy? Maybe. Some people say yes. Some people say no. The way he's played the last couple of games reminds you of how good this guy can be. But yeah, for the Islanders, it's just,
that's me. Yeah.
I would say no, unless you're getting a legitimate bona fide guy and you have defensive depth to take his spot. And no one has, not really do the Islanders have anyone in the pipeline right side defenseman that could take that part. So Islanders are in a tough spot with getting talent. They're going to have to hope Richie pans out.
Where do things exactly stand with Dobson after all these conversations? I mean, you would figure, you know, it's such a hard thing to try to have a player, you know, a defenseman of his ilk. And, you know, we all know the value of that, but having those conversations, where exactly do things stand with him right now? In terms of things? Right.
So he did change his agent. And usually when you change your agent, it means you want to get something done. Now I had heard that he'd been offered a contract a year ago, didn't accept it, obviously. And then here we are now. And I think it sucks for him because not only has he had the down year, and I think a lot of it's not having Barzal. I'm not saying that secondary assists don't matter because they do, but he hasn't had a lot of points because people haven't finished. And the power play has been terrible, which clearly impacts Dobson being the point guy on the power play. He changes agents. There's all these conversations, all these rumors. And I think you're just you're seeing right now how much you're really testing a 25-year-old's mindset and can he overcome it, right? So I think coming back from the injury in the Four Nations break, he looks so much more not ready, but he's reading the game like he read it last year. He's making the plays. He's getting the finishing that he didn't have earlier in the year. So
I think it's tough. He was also trying to force extra offense. I've watched this guy play a long time, and it seemed like he was trying to take too much of that on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the defense partners that he has. The Islanders have been trying to force him with Romanov. When Romanov first got here, they tried it. It didn't work. They've tried to go back and forth, but with Dobson out and D'Angelo coming in, we saw a different Romanov who's been a lot better, playing more of a two-way game instead of a shutdown defensive game. I think that's kind of, you know, we see that and we look at Dobson. I think a lot of it was, you know, Dobson expected Romanov to be that stay-at-home guy. That's his job. And I think he was taking chances, but Romanov was also taking chances. There was confusion. Dobson, not great defensively, was being put in more defensive situations because Romanov wanted to go up. Not a problem with that. That's just how it is. But we're seeing Dobson play better alongside Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock. He played on his offside, which he looks pretty good at. But I think for them, Dobson's able to read what they're going to do and understands their game a lot more than this new Romanov who does it all. So now Dobson's willing to take those offensive chances because he knows that, okay, Pelech's staying back, Pulak's staying back. I'm okay to go and just play free. I think Dobson's playing free, and I think he's got a bright spot with this team. I don't think he's going anywhere. The decision is just going to be, is he a $10 million annual defenseman? Is he 8? If I'm him, does his agent want him to take a bridge deal because the cap's going to keep going up and bank on it in your prime? There's a lot of things working against Dobson and for Dobson. I mean, you can't disregard the 70-point campaign. Now, the Islanders could say, well, that's just a one-off. And he could say, well, the whole team's been hurt. I did that last year. Look what I do the next. And let's say he has a great run at the end of the season here. They'll be in a prime shape to get a contract. I've heard offer sheets potentially. Maybe we see that. Who knows? But I think Dobson will be an Islander. And I think if he's finding a way to finish the season strong, that kind of just shows his mental fortitude. And that's really important for a guy that's 25 trying to take that next step.
Would anyone dare sign an offer sheet against Lou Lamoriello?
Would they? No, I don't think so, which is the reason why we haven't seen it yet. But if there was ever a time and ever a player, Noah's the guy.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. So a big win for the Islanders against Pittsburgh. They came back to the point where they annoyed Sidney Crosby post-game, and he actually spoke out against his team, which he doesn't do a lot. So talk about that one, and just, do you think that they can carry that for like the next 10 games? Because that's what they would have to do.
Yeah, you look at last night, and it was a carbon copy, as close of a repeating victory that they had Sunday. Outplayed the team that they're facing early in the first period. Don't get the goals. Ice shifts in the second. Go to the third down 2-0, and then score four unanswered goals. Both Holmstrom empty net goals, by the way, in back-to-back games. And they find a way to get it done. And they're a resilient team. We've talked about it so many times. And then the question is, can they keep doing it? I mean, it's very hard. It's easy to doubt the team, but then you look back, and every year, the last couple of years, 2 games before the end of the season, the game before the last game of the season to clinch. They went 8-1 last year to close out the year. They didn't even finish as a wildcard team. They finished 3rd in the Metro. So yeah, it's hard to doubt this team because really everyone that says, oh, they're done, they can't make it, just look back to every end of their season the last couple of years and say, this group, more or less the same guys, minus Brock Nelson, have proven it. They were even without Matthew Barzal 2 years ago, clinching in the final game of the year against Montreal. So I think they can do it. The question is, I don't think they want to be trailing in all these games. It's very hard to play from behind each and every game. So if they can find a way to, like this game against Montreal on Thursday is massive. This is the close to a playoff game as they've had all year. The building's probably going to be rocking. Montreal, I think, has points in 10 of 11. So this is the real this might be the hardest game they have for the rest of the year, to be perfectly honest. Coming off the emotions of back-to-back wins, one at home in front of your fans where it was absolute chaos at UBS, then doing it on the road. Come back, and this is really the biggest game of the year for the Islanders, and if they could build on that, great. But yeah, I have a hard time doubting this team because every time we say they're done, they're not.
Stefan, when they let go Lambert and brought in Patrick Roy, I think they were looking for more, I don't know, maybe more structure, maybe more excitement. He is somebody who, I mean, I know in the Q and his brief window with Colorado, he was more of a motivational coach. I don't know, has that been the dynamic there? Because I mean, right now they're 31-28 and I think 31-28-6. I mean, that's not exactly, I mean, I think there's talent there. I just don't know if Patrick Roy has been able to get the most out of that talent.
Yeah, he was brought in to kind of wake up a group that was sleeping and show belief. Because I'm not saying Lane Lambert stopped believing in them, but it was clear during press conference and like that Lane was kind of putting the onus on the players. I'm not saying he was wrong to do that, but he did that. Patrick Roy comes in, brings the fire to practice, brings the structure to practice. I've never seen this team practice the way they practice under Patrick. You know what they say when you're younger, practice how you play. I think they got a little complacent under Lane, and Roy comes in and was like, this is how we're going to do things. I'm an outside voice. We suck at in his first press conference, he said, we're last in this. We're bottom league in this. We're bottom league in this. Immediately said, hey, we have things we have to fix, and we're going to fix these things. And he's tried to do that. It's been a struggle. As you said, the record, they've had a lot of inconsistencies. He thought their first training camp under Roy would be a lot better. I mean, it was a really strong training camp, but it didn't really translate into points. They had all these injuries. But what you're seeing now is that what he said every day after practice, after game is, we believe in the process. Trust the process, you'll get the results. And while that didn't happen as much as I think he wanted to this year, these last 2 games, the process is there. They're out shooting their opponents. They're dominating ozone time. They're getting up on the rush. They're just not scoring. And then in the third period, when they're down 2-0, they're finding the goals and they're finding the results and they're sticking with it. And I think that's the biggest thing that Waz brought. Is he a great coach for this group? Like I said before, I think his Waz system is very, very good for a team that could, like, I would love to see his system in Colorado. They might not lose a game just because they'll score 4, 5, 6 goals a game. And you could have Georgiev in goal and you would have been fine. A blindfolded Georgiev, you're probably fine. But for the Islanders, this team just doesn't have those kinds of goal scorers. So I don't know if it's a perfect match system-wise. Waz not willing to change his system like Trotz was in Lane. So I think it's still a work in progress. However, I do think that Lou's going to be back, and I believe that Patrick Waugh will be back. So I think a second year where Waz understanding this team maybe more than he did coming on the fly last season will be beneficial. But also, it's up to Lou to get the talent to allow Waz's system to flourish. He's a motivator, but I think this team could do a lot better, and I think maybe a second year under Waugh will do this team well.
But no chance Waugh puts on the pads like Lester Patrick at 44, right? If there's a failing in net, he's not doing that, right?
No, absolutely not. No, we've asked him if he would put the pads back on, and he said absolutely. He said he could go down. He doesn't think he could get back up.
It would be like you running on the base pads, Ross.
Yeah.
So it'd be exactly like that. Minus all of that.
Once I reach wherever I'm going, I usually do
hobbling with crutches.
No crutches. All right, so there is a question from the chat room from Randy, and I think it's a good one because I've stated I didn't think the Islanders or the Rangers would make the playoffs. I stated the Rangers back in November, and people thought I was a heretic, and fine. That game against Calgary kind of proved that they're lacking heart. So the question would be, Stefan, who is going to end up with more points, the Islanders or the Rangers? And I think that's a tough one. If I'm going to answer now, I think the Islanders may end up with more points than the Rangers and still not make the playoffs. I think that's how weird this season is going.
I would agree with you, and this is not a knock on the Rangers at all, really, as a talent. Like, I think they have a ton of talent. I think their problem is work ethic at times. I'm not saying they don't try, but in the big moments, coming through and having one player step up to bring the whole group. You look at the flip side is the Islanders don't have that talent, but what they have is that heart. Like, they will maybe not be the most talented team on the ice, but they're going to work hard. I don't want to say it's like miracle at all like that, but seriously, in those conversations, it's, we're not going to be the best team, but we're going to work harder than anyone else. And I think you see that. So for that reason, I think down the stretch here, the Islanders have a much stronger chance at finishing higher than the Rangers because these are all playoff games. And the Rangers haven't proven that they could rise to the challenge where the Islanders in back-to-back games, and even against the Oilers too, a 2-1 loss in overtime, they played a really good game. Yeah. So I think the heart and soul for the Islanders and that resiliency and that underdog mentality will allow them to really flourish down the stretch here. Whereas for the Rangers, there's no underdog mentality. They're supposed to be good. They're supposed to be better. And everyone's kind of rooting against them. And internally with all the stuff that happened with Drury and Trouba, I just think, I don't know if they know what they're playing for mentally. I don't think they all come into agreements and talking wise and saying, oh, we don't want to play for Drury or we don't know who we're playing for, but just deep down psyche wise, I think there's a lot of, they're not connected. And if you're not connected, you're going to have a hard time winning in the big moments.
Stefan, last question for me, not necessarily completely Islander related, but certainly in this circumstance, players looking forward to in the future. Cole Yzerman just wanted to, seems to be having a pretty good campaign right now. Long term, this, it looks like he could be a potential option for the Islanders down the road. Yeah,
I didn't think they had a choice at the draft because he had fell, right? He falls all the way to 20. You're like, okay, hopefully he's not a Bellows or a Wallstrom, and this works out for the Islanders. Now, I think a big part of that, was Jay Pandolfo being the head coach. Mm-hmm. Lou knows Jay, obviously, from the time of the Devils, and then assistant, and Jay played for the Islanders for a year. But you look at what he's able to do to young players, and I think for Yzerman, it's always been we're not going to rush this kid, right? He's having a great freshman campaign. He obviously played for Team USA in a more of a 13 forward road power play specialist and did well there. But you're just seeing him take those strides offensively and also defensively. I think Jay Pandolfo did an interview where he talked glowingly about he's not as bad as I thought he was away from the puck. Like, he fights, he competes. He clearly has ice in his veins and also has that emotion. Like Patrick Waugh, if this guy could play a 200-foot game, Patrick Waugh is going to love this guy because he has that emotion, that flair. The Islanders haven't really had a guy like that. Yeah, you have Pajot getting into it afterwards, but this guy's going to score a big goal and then look at you and say something to your face. And a Brad Marchand guy, you need those guys. And guys that have all the talent in the world, and like a guy like Yzerman, helps their power play, helps their top six, and also brings that energy that I think is missing from a lot of teams, especially the Islanders. So I don't think we'll see him next year. I don't think there's any point in rushing a guy at all, especially with the way Bridgeport struggled to develop prospects. I think you keep him away.
Are they even playing hockey? They're not even. They're so bad.
It's bad because who cares about the record, right? As long as you're developing players. The problem is they're not developing the young guys, and that's unfortunate because when a player like Quinn Finley could decide to sign with the Islanders or go back to school. Like he already, I think, verbally said that he wanted to go back. But to me, if I'm their agent, dude, you're going back to school. Go get your master's, right?
Right.
Like
yeah, he could play an extra year as a graduate player, right? So
right. So
year, yeah.
I think until Bridgeport proves that they could actually produce talent. Again, Holmstrom has been a good player. I think a lot of it has been the players that were drafted. Obviously, certain players are just not good enough to be those players, but they need to fix their developmental structure. Once they do that, I think you'll see more prospects come earlier. But yeah, Cole Eiserman, let him thrive in bigger minutes, bigger roles over the next couple of years, and then come over, because the last thing they want to do is rush a kid that has this much potential.
Agreed. And he scored a nice goal the other day. I like him a lot. We'll see what happens with him down the road. But Stefan, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And, I'll see you later this summer.
Yeah, see you later. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care, Stefan. Thanks.
Thanks, Stefan.
All right. So let's talk about this one story that's out there. I'm only going to give it like one round around the table here. When Trump and Putin are talking, and all of a sudden there's this thought of, hey, let the NHL play against the KHL. Here's my thoughts. Vladimir Putin never travels anywhere. So I don't think he's coming here, and I don't think Gary Bettman's allowing players to go to Russia. So I'm saying this is a big fat no matter what the era is. But what do you guys think?
Well, I'll just say this. I thought they were talking about Ukraine, not about hockey. So concentrate on that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, first of all, this isn't going to happen for one reason. The IIHF will go mad, and the NHL wants to still have a relationship, even though they're gonna block them out of the Four Nations or whatever the World Cup is the next time around. They want a relationship with the IIHF, with the going forward with the Olympics and everything else and the World Championships. They as long as the ban is on Russia and Belarus for international competition, if you go around that and play games against the KHL, you're persona non grata with the IAHF. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, these are just conversations, I think, again, probably from Putin's end, knowing full well that, they've been cut out of the Olympics. The idea that, again, this is an attempt for legitimization. They
right.
If the NHL plays KHL players, that they sees that as a window to get back into, get back for Olympic glory. So I think it's a conversation that two world leaders have, maybe, late in negotiations or whatever, and say, hey, by the way, that kind of thing. And it makes things certainly difficult, I think, certainly for the NHL, and I think the NHL is probably playing this correct and saying we will comment at another time.
I'll send you some McDonald's.
If at all.
Yeah, I'll send you some McDonald's. You send me some borscht, and then,
So, all right. So one more thing I'm going to bring up about the Rangers against the Flames the other night. I watched two games. I was watching that game, and I was watching Canadian Sens, and we'll talk about Canadian Sens in a minute. But that Ranger-Calgary game, Calgary didn't play their best hockey, but they played just good enough so the Rangers did exactly what Stefan said. They never put on enough pressure. They never took enough shots or even hit the net enough. I remember Sam Rosen saying maybe like early third period or middle third, they had 12 shots on net and had missed like 23 shots. Now, again, this team is obviously not locked in. They've got all kinds of locker room problems. They've got problems. Laviolette is sitting the wrong guys at times. It's just some of the things that are happening are just, it's all kind of caving in. And so points is kind of like a mirage, really, I think.
I feel like that and we've been through this many times discussing the shelf life of Peter Laviolette for a team, and after a while, like after once you get to the third season mark, things really start to go south. I feel like if they were going to can him, they would have probably done it much earlier. He's probably getting the full ride to the end of the season, much as everyone wants to talk about, he should be fired after that game. So my question then becomes, who is your option? You're going to change. I mean, I know you've already made trades and changed players out and everything else, but who are you bringing in? Who's the guy who's going to save this campaign?
Gerard Gallant 2.0.
Gerard Gallant.
I think this is where Drury calls up his buddy Jay Pandolfo and
calls says, Jay and Jay says,
"What do you think?
Do you want to do?" That's again another off-season thing. It's not going to. I don't see Penn.
It's an
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, now that's a possibility. I can absolutely see that once they get to the summer.
Because Quenneville's name will be out there.
I just don't see Quenneville be out there.
Yeah.
You know, I could see it possibly, but again, it's just I feel like they would have made the transition. They would have done it much earlier. They're going to probably they're at this point now. Unlike Lou, who likes to fire guys 10 games before the end of the season and coach them themselves. I don't think Chris Drury's about to get behind the bench here for the New York Rangers.
The only thing I would hesitate on, Russ, is the fact that they've gone the college route before and that didn't work. Even though I think they didn't do David Quinn the right,
I think in this case, Pandolfo, being a former National Hockey League player, longtime NHL player, has a bit more of a grip on pro hockey versus
and a BU bro. We gotta,
But this is dysfunction junction. What's your function? I mean, it's really. I mean, I've never seen a team, just self-immolate more than the New York Rangers, because they started off the season pretty good. They were in the conference final last year. They had one of the best goaltenders in the league, and it just crumbled. It just completely. I mean, it started with the Zibanejad, Kreider trade rumors, and then the Trouba stuff, and then it just completely. It's a cluster. It's a big cluster.
Looks like he's suffering out there when you watch him.
He's probably, and this is the thing, honestly, they're in a playoff race right now. Do we think they're going to make it? No. But if they still have a infinitesimal chance of making the playoffs, he's going to continue to play. Right. Once they get eliminated the day after, he's probably having back surgery.
Yeah. Something.
Or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a mess. Mike, we could talk about an interesting dilemma here that Shane Malloy brought up to me that you happened to notice and I didn't notice right away, and that is the Sabres are gaining on the Flyers in the standings. Mm-hmm. So now for draft position, is this the right thing for the Sabres to do to, like, all of a sudden, if they go on a 5-game winning streak, they're going to see themselves getting a lesser player. Like, that's just a fact.
If you ask the Sabres, they don't give a crap about the draft pick. We need to finish this season on a positive note, because this has been a negative throughout the year. They've never recovered from that 13-game winless skid. I think that's short-sighted. I think you have a problem in Buffalo getting talent to come here. You can't attract free agents, and if players have no trade protection, they're going to have Buffalo on the list. So the only way that you really can do this is to draft and develop your own players. Now, you can say they've failed at that, or at least have not had the success that they should, because they've had 2 number 1 overall picks in the last 6 years, and they've drafted some good players, and they've rushed them to the NHL. But I think if you have a chance to get a Hagens, or instead win 8 games at the end of the year, stop it. Lose the games and draft the best player.
Yeah, I certainly. When I saw the standings the other day and saw the Sabres surging, it was just like, I mean, the Flyers have. I know the Flyers said they're John Tortorella trying to win. They're trying to win. The general manager has pretty much made the statement with regards to when the trades that were made and where the Flyers lineup currently stands. Right. And it's bereft of talent. And at the end of the day, it was by design. Again, this is not a Connor McKenna. This is not a McKenna draft in this case. So that's one of the things that I think maybe some teams are like, well, the generational talent isn't in this draft. It's in 2026.
But I did say
really, that's the time to really. Right now, you think about the big picture of your organization. Think of that sort. That being said,
you never know who's going to surprise.
Exactly. You don't know who's going to be in that circumstance. So you have to maximize in the season your picks, especially the lottery pick.
But I did say to Russ, because everybody thinks that Schaefer is the number 1. It's either him or Hagens. And wouldn't it be something if the Sabres win the lottery for the 3rd time in 7 years, and the number 1 overall pick is a defenseman, which is what they don't really need. I mean, they have a number 1 overall pick in Power, a number 1 overall pick in Dahlin. Yeah. I would almost think that they'd be open to trading back if they could trade down a slot or two and draft a Hagens, because Buffalo has a lot of US NTDP people in there.
Yeah.
They probably like Hagens over Shaver, but who knows? I mean, first you have to win the lottery.
Yeah, but then you can make that choice. Then you have to go organize. At the end of the day, whatever everybody says, it's whatever your organization.
It really
is.
I pointed out to someone.
And one other thing I wanted to state is that, interesting enough, Mike mentioning the fact that the Sabres have had 3 number 1 overall picks in the last 7 seasons.
If they won the lottery this
year.
They
won the lottery this year, so they have 2 in the last 6.
Yeah.
Philly's never had a single number 1. They've never been drafted first, ever.
Right.
They've acquired the first overall pick, but he was already signed. He was already drafted already in Eric Lindros.
Right.
But the Flyers have never had a number 1 overall pick.
And
this would be the season that would happen when you don't
have to be in the top
an
11
actual
to get that.
Exactly.
Not you can't.
Yeah.
So so they look good for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, also with regard to the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews scored 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
So things are looking better now, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, they've blown a couple opportunities. I mean, they, up until the game that they won against Calgary, and it was a lopsided victory, 6-2. They had lost 5 of 6, and not only had lost 5 of 6, they lost to Florida in a head-to-head matchup against a team that they're, this is the biggest game of the year, and they came out looking like crap. Really, I mean, and against Ottawa, a team that they've now lost the entire season series against, they look like crap. Now, okay, the new additions are settling in. There is that 5-6 games it takes to sort of get into the swing of things.
New addition like Bobby Brown. New edition?
No, like Brandon Carlo. Wow, Russ, you pulled
Hey,
one out of your.
It's my prerogative. If
I'm hitting the ends.
Dump that one out.
Oh my God, I'm gonna puke. But no, they in the 2 biggest games, I think after the 4 nations, they really came up flat. Now they scored 6 goals against Calgary, and Calgary's had a year above expectations. They're playing Colorado tonight. Colorado's a team. They're they lost to Colorado. They lost to Vegas on the road. They've lost to Florida. Whenever they've played a good team in the last, I would say, month, they've lost. So they need to step up their game. I mean, right now, even with that record, they're 2 points behind Florida with a game in hand. So is Tampa Bay. It's anybody's division right now. It's who plays the best in the last month of this season. Can they do it? They have the talent to. The problem is that talent never shows up when it's the time to show up. So let's see.
A question from the chat room from Michael Borland. Had the Sabres won the draft lottery when McDavid was in it, would he still be there for like the next contract? Because obviously I think he'd still be there now, but would he stay there?
Well, you don't know what that team would have been like with him. I mean, for one thing, the coach of the Buffalo Sabres would have been Mike Babcock. It would not have been who they hired, which I think was Biosma at that point.
Yeah, I think it was Biosma.
Yeah, so I mean, because it's widely known that had they won the lottery, Babcock would have not used the offer that the Sabres made to him and sold it to the Leafs. So basically said, if you match this, I'll come here. He did that and left them high and dry. He would have been the coach. Now, based on what he did in Toronto, maybe that wouldn't have been a success because we know that Mike Babcock is a dick, and his act does not work, especially with young players.
It did at the time.
Oh yeah.
It did at the time.
Oh yeah, but
it worked less in Columbus. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, but. The problem with Buffalo is, I mean, would McDavid still be the player that he is right now had he been in Buffalo? Probably. Sam Reinhart may have stayed, and Sam Reinhart may have been the Leon Draisaitl, of Buffalo, being on the wing of Connor McDavid. There are so many what ifs because then they wouldn't have had Dahlin, then they wouldn't have had Power. But would they have been a better team? Would they have made better decisions?
They still would have had the same people making decisions, except for the coach.
Right, Tim Murray would have been the general manager. How
Right.
long would he have lasted? Then it wouldn't have been Kevin Adams. We know from Terry Pagula likes to hire people and let them do their job. The problem is with the Bills, he hired the right people and they've done a great job. The problem is with the Sabres, he's hired the wrong people. He's meddled at times, and they're not doing a good job. And Kevin Adams, I think with 31 other organizations, Kevin Adams would be fired at the end of the season. I don't know whether they're firing him or not.
Yeah. I do want to say this. So the chat room is like Michael Cohen saying Flyers missed Kane and won JVR. Okay, but here's the thing. Shane Malloy and I, same guy, we did a show. I used to always do these shows on the concourse with the NHL. And so we did like a mock draft for that show. We talked about who might go where. And when we said Patrick Kane to the Blackhawks, people booed the crap out of us. These Blackhawks fans that were there
Russ never forgets.
didn't want. I probably have it still on audio. They didn't want any part of it. They were just like, no, he's too small. He's too this. And we're like, no, but this guy's really talented.
We want more guys like Cam Barker.
So the funny thing is, Michael Cohen, had JVR gone to the Blackhawks, their fans would have been happier. It would have been
At the time, which
at the
is why we
time,
don't.
not in the end, obviously, but at the time they would have been happier. I think it would have been the same thing like when the Eagles fans booed McNabb.
Bingo. Yeah, Ricky Williams was the
Correct.
the dirty 30.
Yep.
WIP going up and booing the draft. And at the end of the day, the Eagles have prior to this current era probably was their golden era.
The absolute best for people
without a Super Bowl, of course.
go online
Mhm.
and see the reaction to the 2018 NFL draft from Buffalo Bills fans who were at like various wing places around Buffalo. And when they said Josh Allen instead of Josh Rosen, they were going, no, they were ripping their hair out. Oh no, they took the guy from Wyoming who can't throw the short. Yeah, how does it look now? He's the MVP.
Right. So that's sometimes
Draft
those
experts.
sometimes those things occur. I wanted to mention with the Canadiens Sens game was interesting because I still think Ottawa will make the playoffs for some reason. And I wrote about this on the Hockey News. The Canadiens are 3-0 this year against Ottawa. Brady Tkachuk was a little hurt, but he still played. And so it's not really an excuse. Linus Ullmark came up small, especially on a puck that he should have had covered in the crease and ended up getting knocked in because the whistle wasn't blown. I think he expected the whistle to be blown, but again, you got to play to the whistle, right?
Yes.
Isn't this league weird? Because, okay, like I just said, Saturday night, Ottawa plays Toronto. Ullmark was superb.
He made a great save, right? A great save.
He made three or four great saves in the third period, and not single-handedly, but they had a 3-2 lead. He held the lead. They got an empty net goal. They beat Toronto, who I think most people think is a better team than Ottawa, but Ottawa has Toronto's number, at least in the regular season. Now, you just said Montreal, it's all matchups. It is
really matchups. Weird. That's what we're seeing now. My dad brought this up to me many, many years ago as a kid with boxers. How I used to say, how could Ali not beat Frazier, but he would beat Ken Norton every time? And my dad would be like, it's a matchup of styles. And, we're seeing that right now down the stretch. Like some teams are just better than other teams in these kinds of matchups. And depending on how many points you have in the playoff race, it could really decide things. But, Mike, I also did notice that while he was doing well and the Sens were on the streak, Dylan Cousins – he was getting a point every other game. He was doing good. He was a plus in most games. That game, he was a -3. And so, the other games are the reason they got him, and that game is the reason I don't like him at center. So I don't know where he's going to fall for them.
Well, the glass half full opinion is, well, at least he's doing better than Josh Norris because Josh Norris is out injured. Cousins has had games like that this season where, he sort of disappeared or he just is flummoxed and has had a bunch of hiccups and just seems detached from what the strategy of the team is. So I mean is that the sign of a young player? I mean, you and I have talked about this, and Anthony, we've all talked about this in terms of Is he a center? Well, he's going to be a center with them.
He'll have to be. Yeah, he's going to have to be, because especially with when you deal with Josh Norris.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I feel like also with Cousins that I feel like, you know, he's gonna need an off season in Ottawa to kind of reset himself.
Yeah.
I just feel like you kind of get jumping from one place to the other, and we all sometimes expect a young player to immediately click in a new environment, and you know, he may just need the off season. I think we get to next year and we're still seeing that kind of, you know, up and down kind of play, you know, after an off season of kind of getting yourself involved in the organization more. I at that point, I jump to certain conclusions. I do think he can be a center, but there's things that have to be refined in his game before I'm completely convinced that he's an NHL center.
Teams are just so enthralled with this. He's a right shot center, and right shot centers are really tough to find in this league.
And only big centers could succeed, Mike. Remember, like Marco Rossi, forget it. Like he's, you know, anytime you talk to anybody about it, they'll always say, well, he's an outlier, but we're getting more outliers than we used to. And he's a small center who I looked up the other day. He's 33% in defensive zone starts. He is a plus player. He's got like 50 points. He's not even signed. He might be a guy that gets signed to an offer sheet because he's going into his final RFA year. And I get that he had some injury problems. He had a heart problem. He had some other things. But if Minnesota doesn't really get serious about him, somebody may offer sheet him away.
Well, I mean, and this is going to dominate late June and July for this league this year with the cap going up. I think you're going to see more potential offer sheets than we've seen ever. And, you know, I mean, I know that, and like I've said many a time about Devin Levi, if Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is got 4 years left in his contract and he's playing 60 games like he played 50 some last year, where is he going to play? Is he going to sign here? I think he could get offer sheeted, or I think if he says, I'm not going to sign other than the qualifying offer, or, you know, like a 1 year deal. I mean, that might do the Sabres a favor because they don't want to pay him long term. But if somebody decides, well, the goaltending market out there after Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson and Velmelka and Blackwood, all these guys have signed contracts. There aren't many goaltenders out there. I mean, Alex Lyon, Freddie Anderson, Vitek Vanacek, Georgiev, the free agent market for goalies sucks. It's bad.
That's why everybody got locked up. You know, Lindgren got locked up. Thompson got locked up. Aiden Hill
Jonathan Quick signed a 1 year deal, 1 year extension.
I mean, he's 39 years old, right? I mean, he got locked up. Yeah.
So, I mean, that means that the goaltenders, whoever the ones, I mean, that means the Gibsons, the Demkos, you know, maybe even Tristan Jarry, if somebody wants to take a flyer on him, they'll get traded this year because there's a market. There are 3 or 4 teams that think they're a goaltender away from making the playoffs, and those teams can sell those goaltenders. And if one of those teams can't get one of those guys, and maybe they don't want to sign them or trade for them because they have injury history, well, Devin Levi is a healthy 23-year-old who's having a great year in the American Hockey League. That is somebody that somebody might take a shot at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. All right. That's it. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.